Welcome to the Sip and Scale podcast, where we talk about everything business, entrepreneurship, and startups. My name is Blendy Mariki. I'm the CEO and founder of Delegate.co. Each week, you'll join us as we talk with industry experts and business owners, sharing actionable insights to drive your business forward. So grab your favorite beverage and let's sip our way to success. This week, I am pleased to have to the show a good friend of mine, a founder himself, a Yale grad, and a New Yorker, fellow New Yorker.
Almost New Yorker, yeah.
How many years has it been?
It's been 3 years, so I don't think I meet the threshold, right?
All right, give him another 2 years, and we'll give him a threshold.
Yeah.
Presenting my friend Qi Cao. I hope that I got the pronunciation of that right. I know some of our friends would butcher it, so there you go.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, you got it perfectly. Thanks for having me, Blendy.
Yeah. So this is our second episode. I'm still relatively new to this, so bear with me. The point of us having these conversations is have an organic space where we can talk about our achievements, talk about our struggles, talk about some of the issues we face on a daily basis in scaling our business, and our outlook in different industries and insights. So with that, I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself, give everyone an introduction of who you are, and how you started, and what you're currently doing.
Sure, absolutely. So I kind of like to start at the very beginning because I think it builds a nice story. At least probably I have it as a nice story because I use it for interviews, but way back when. But I was born in Wuhan, China. Moved to the U.S. when I was 5. So my family were immigrants. Didn't have much money. Grew up with food stamps and looking at other people and seeing, wow, they live such a fantastic life. So that kind of gave me the drive to figure out pretty early on how to make money through business. So when I was in elementary school, I bought 400 Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Pokemon cards for $20. And I resold them as packages to my fellow classmates for $2 a package, right? So that was one way I made money at the very beginning. And then in high school, I sold candy and soda from my locker until that got shut down. But there's always like little ways to make money, right? And ultimately, though, I pursued my passion and background in biology. So the one thing you need to know about Rochester, Minnesota, where I'm from, is that the Mayo Clinic was founded there. Everyone knows the Mayo Clinic. No one knows Rochester, Minnesota. So that influence of medicine and biological research really led me to do research early on in high school. And then I applied to Yale and studied biology there. And it was good. It was really hard because I think I realized as I went through my time at Yale that medicine and biology wasn't for me. Because instead of doing like research over summers and stuff, I found myself in entrepreneurship programs and building companies during the summer. So we had a company called Simplex, which is still around, operated by students at Yale. And then we also had a company called Furno. And the one thing I like to think back on is when we were founding Furno, we thought our biggest competitor was Musical.ly, because they were doing like music, social media, and that's kind of what we were trying to do. And then Musical.ly obviously became TikTok. So maybe if I tried a little harder, I could have made the first TikTok, but I did not. So, went through college really loving entrepreneurship and doing it on the side. But once I got to my senior year, I was thinking, look, I don't want to put myself through another 4 years of school. I like learning, but I don't like studying and memorizing. And I really love business, and I don't have any business background. So the most logical next step for me was going into life sciences consulting. So a lot of strategic consulting work with biotech companies and pharma companies, around like what they should do with existing drugs, what other clinical trials they should try on, what are the opportunities and market sizes for potential indications they can target. And it was great for strategy, right? Learning framework thinking, but there's no skin in the game. So I moved to Indigo Ag, which was a unicorn, focused on agriculture technology. So basically, there was a marketplace where we could provide transparency on prices between grain buyers and grain sellers. But we quickly learned, or we should have quickly learned, that no one wanted to have price transparency because having under the table agreements actually benefited farmers more. So, us sitting in Boston building out Indigo while the folks that are actually our customers are in the Midwest, there was a big discrepancy between what we were building and what they wanted. I learned from that, and over time, I figured we probably weren't going to be able to find that product market fit, and I wanted even more skin in the game because I was in corporate development, and I was working under the C-suite, but ultimately, it's the C-suite that determines whether you're going to get paid on your equity or not.
Yeah.
Right. And then next step was Point 72. So I was doing some hedge fund work, covered multi-industrials and enterprise software. And that gave me a great opportunity to learn finance, while like Indigo is more like learning operations.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's like, even though I was closer and getting closer and closer to having more and more skin in the game, I never had 100% control over what I thought was positive actions and actions that should have been rewarded with money. They never kind of panned out. So founding a company is the best way to get skin in the game, right? Because you're directly determining your own fate. And that's what I love. And one of my friends asked me, like, do you like regret quitting your job, or do you like working as a full-time entrepreneur? I was like, yeah, never been happier. So I don't think I can go back into the workforce, honestly.
I with you on that. Once you have a taste of the independence and the untapped upside in having your own business, you can never regress from that.
Right.
Because your ability and your potential doesn't have a ceiling when you're working.
Right.
The only ceiling is yourself, your ability, your perseverance, the skills that you have to develop. I had a conversation to that point. I had a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, and he was toying with the idea of leaving his company. He had a successful career in the tech space and he was making good money, but he wanted to take the leap and start his own business. And the way he looked at it is he's like, oh, I'm not going to get paid enough. Like, I want to get paid more, and I've reached my ceiling of how much I can get paid at this current company. And my statement to him was like, listen, buddy, like, you're going to, even if you get that pay bump, you're going to still feel like there's something constraining. That's why you want to start your own company. And there's no amount that you can, provide someone, I mean, to an extent. But if you have that yearning to be a part of something, to build something yourself, you're going to go and do it. You just have to, take the leap of faith. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I tell folks, like why I made the leap, is because I've always wanted to build my own company, but never gave it my 100%. Always was building it on the side, right?
yeah.
And Jeff Bezos, like his view on regret, right, is you're on your deathbed, you're 80 years old, and you look back, are you going to regret the fact that you never made that leap? I would have regretted it terribly.
Yeah.
It kind of frightens me, actually. So that's when I knew that it was time for me to make the jump.
So tell me about your current the current company that you're working on. I know
Sure.
it's a chargebacks are a huge problem for businesses. I work with a lot of different businesses in one segment of our customer base is short-term rentals. and it's a huge issue in that space. But I know in the e-commerce space, it's especially problematic to a lot of businesses that are really trying to scale and, prevent loss of income.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll give you a little background. So we founded ChargeBlast kind of out of our own need because prior to ChargeBlast, we were running a direct-to-consumer subscription software platform targeting a certain demographic that loved to charge back. And our chargeback rates were rising so quickly, we were looking for solutions. I couldn't find a really good one. Not one that had the right technology, not one that had the level of support that I needed. So we looked deeper into basically just starting our own chargeback mitigation company and decided it was a good opportunity because we do client services very well and we do tech integrations very well. So we founded ChargeBlast, and ChargeBlast basically helps merchants maintain their chargeback rates near 0%. And the whole reason why merchants want that is because if you're at 0.65%, you're already on Visa's radar for a potentially risky company. And that's not very much, 0.65%. Most people come to us too late. And that's one thing I want to point out is like people are coming to us at 2%, 3%. Their accounts are basically what I call like the walking dead. If Stripe hasn't shut it down today, they could shut it down tomorrow, right? So if they have too high of chargeback rates, they can lose their payment processing account.
Wow.
And if you can't process payments, you don't have a business, right? You can't take money. And that's why it's such a serious problem, and we wanted to address it and provide the level of service that a founder, frankly, deserves, because they're scared that they're going to lose their ability to take payments, right? So in the way that it works technically is when a chargeback happens, so this is post-transaction. So after the consumer has bought the product, they call their credit card companies and they're like, I want my money back. For whatever reason, it could be friendly fraud, it could be real, like the product is damaged or something like that, but they want their money back. And typically, then the information goes to the processor and the processor fines the merchant. But when they're with ChargeBlast, they avoid the processor altogether. So when the consumer calls the credit card company, they'll let ChargeBlast know. And then we'll let the merchant know, not the processor.
Mm-hmm.
And the merchant has 48 to 72 hours to make the refund. And then if they do so, we'll let the credit card companies know, hey, everything's good. No need to tell the processor or open a dispute with the processor, right? And this allows companies to scale without concern, especially in the e-com and software like subscription SaaS space. Yeah, so we got really good product market fit there so far.
So essentially, the refund is still occurring, right? So it's like, but what's the rationale in that? Like in the long run, it's better to have your account active and
Yeah,
producing income than have a situation where you have a small percentage of chargebacks and then all of a sudden you have to worry about creating another account, which might be
right. Impossible.
impossible.
So maybe a couple things, right? Why refund the customer without fighting a chargeback kind of sounds counterintuitive, but the reason is merchants only win about 10 to 20% of the time. And we target a lot of subscription SaaS, $9.99 a month. If you're going to be fighting a $9.99, $10 chargeback, and you have a 20% chance of winning, your EV on that's $2. Are you really spending your whole day trying to collect evidence to submit and work with the issuer for $2? No. But what's even crazier is when there's a chargeback, you also get hit with a dispute fee from your processor. For Stripe, it's $15. So now your $2 goes to negative $13. So now you're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah.
Right? So at that point, you might as well just refund the $9.99 transaction, forget about it, because then at least you're you're at a $0 rather than negative $13 EV. So that's kind of why we really urge a lot of our merchants just to refund. And then the second part, I think, was for me, it's really about scaling profitably. So we are fully bootstrapped and have not raised any venture money whatsoever. So you really have to build a company that is profitable, right? If you build a company that's just break even and not profitable, you're not going to be able to grow it. So we put all of our profits right back into the company, and it's kind of growing like a nice little rocket ship. The way that we get our customers primarily is through inbound. So we do a lot of ad placement, we do a lot of social media, organic placements, and we go to a lot of conferences. That's a little bit more outbound, right? And the challenge that I'm facing is how do we grow without increasing our costs at the same rate? Because if you're increasing your sales at 5% or 10% every month, but you're increasing your costs at the same amount and you're barely break even, you're never going to make money, right? You're never going to be able to make a good free cash flow business. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge I'm facing right now. And the solution is really leveraging technology, like the AI chatbots for our live chat, mm-hmm. right? Leveraging technology. So our 5-star support team doesn't need to be managing every single chat. Mm-hmm. So they only manage 50% of the chats. Mm-hmm. So now I was able to save from doubling our support team, which is 9 people, mm-hmm. right? Because the chatbot now serves half the amount.
I'm sure you have a knowledge base that you've created for the chatbot.
Yes, absolutely. The knowledge base, step by step. From the very beginning, we've been adding to the knowledge base of what our clients ask us, right? So it really helps keeping track of all that, and it pays off in the long run.
Gotcha. In terms of your ideal customer, it sounds like it's that SaaS company that has a $10 subscription that they get a chargeback on because for whatever reason the person didn't want to pay it, didn't intend on paying it, or was just trying to shop around and try something, and then the trial expired.
Right. Yep. That's our ICP. That's kind of our bread and butter. And you find a lot of these guys on Twitter and Reddit, right? Young founders trying to make a subscription product, never heard of alerts before, don't understand the risk of chargebacks. So we've been a good partner of all of those types of founders, and to figure out not only their chargebacks, but their total payments needs.
Right.
So, for example, a lot of founders don't know that if you try a credit card too many times, right? Because let's say there's a subscription, and then on the 3rd month, the payment fails because of insufficient funds or whatever reason, right? And then you have something called dunning, which is when you try the card at a different time, different date, different day of the week, until the subscription payment goes through. Mm-hmm. But that can reduce your payment authorization rate, meaning a lot of issuers, the guys that issue the credit card, will see you trying the card in all different times and forms and stuff like that. They get kind of suspicious, and then they don't allow you to do as many transactions. It's really detrimental, right? Yeah. So we help our clients figure out hey, what's the best way to turn these failed payments into successful payments, as well as hey, are you using your fraud blocker right? Are you blocking 5% of all your transactions that would have been good transactions, but because you're so scared of chargebacks, you have all these rules in place that prevent the transactions from even happening.
You can
so we work kind of as a floodgate.
Open the floodgate to more business because on the back end you're going to be protected.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, in terms of is this something you learn just through trial and error? It's just research. I'm always, because if I asked you 5 years ago, hey, would you be in this business vertical? You'd be like, what? Chargeback? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So like I'm always interested in hearing the process of gaining the skills necessary to be in a certain industry or business vertical. You have an interesting history in that you were in you went from biology to finance to the tech space. And so yeah, how did you get the skills necessary to even help people through this really complex it's a complex issue in that people don't know how to deal with chargebacks and businesses are facing it every single day.
Right. Well, creating a company, I think, really revolves around your ability to wear multiple hats, right? So there's the strategy side that I gained from my time as a life sciences consultant. There's the ops side of, when I was at Indigo, and then there's the finance side, right? So the thing that we really do when we start businesses, like my co-founders and I, is make sure the business makes sense. So from day one, can we figure out a path to profitability? Let's math it out. Everything is quantitative. How much are we spending on ad spend right now? Is it getting us an ROI above one? If so, well, let's put all our money there. But, well, maybe we're getting an ROI of three in conferences. So let's shift the money from, ad spend to conferences because there's an opportunity cost, right? So breaking down ideas really fundamentally to look at them by the numbers, I think is very useful in terms of having, in terms of a skill set. So quantitatively assessing every business.
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, you completely understand how your business works and you understand what levers to pull to grow the business as fast as possible with the capital that you have on hand. That's the thing about having VC funding, right? If you have a bank account with $10 million in it, you're going to act a lot differently than a founder who has a bank account that has $0 in it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
In terms of capital, you're growing your business. It's grown immensely in such a short period of time. What advice would you give to the people that are bootstrapping, that are starting from zero? Maybe they just have a credit card and um, and that's it.
Or
And
three.
maybe they don't have, $10,000 to spend for
Yep.
a conference and hotels to take for a conference in Vegas, let's say.
Right.
What advice do you give to those people that are in that position where they don't have the VC funding?
Right. Well, first, definitely save up,
Yeah.
right? So you have some funding that you can allocate to your venture. But second, once you understand, once you do some of these tests with the money you do have, like even a small amount, let's call it like $5,000 or like $2,000 to try and create a business. Once you understand the economics of a business and the scalability of that business, use credit cards. We use credit cards all the time for our businesses, right? So we have like three different credit cards, and we have credit limits of up to like $300,000, and we use it because we understand what our ROI is, and because we can understand that, we're not afraid to use it. A lot of founders are afraid of debt because they have to pay it back. With venture, you don't. You lose all the money, oh well, right? But with debt, you do. But debt is a great way to save on your equity, which is probably more
Yeah.
valuable, right? And it's something that can be recurring as well. Once you pay off, your first slug of debt, they'll immediately give you another slug, maybe even bigger. And then you use it, you have positive ROI on it, and do it over and over again,
Yeah.
right?
I remember I listened to a business, I guess, figure, Alex Hormozy, and he's big on Twitter, big on in YouTube, and there was one video in particular where he talked about how he was able to scale, bootstrap his gym licensing business by literally just using like his credit cards. But the key was he made sure that his cost of acquiring a customer was paid back within 30 days. So
Right.
if he's spending $100,000 on that credit card, he needs to make sure that fulfillment
Yep.
occurs within a 30-day period in order for him to re-up on that.
Right. All he did was break down the numbers. What was the LTV? What was the CAC? Is it above one? If so, you should feel okay to spend, right? It's all just mathematics, especially when it comes to consumer facing brands, ad spend and math, and that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know if like for my business, those of you that are watching this for the first time, I run a staffing as a service company where we provide overseas talent to small and medium sized businesses. One of my goals is to really decrease that time to fulfill the service. If we're able to get, a lot of products and services, the sales cycle is very long. If you're spending, let's say, $300,000 a month, but then, you have a prospect where you're waiting 3, 4 months to get them into the pipeline, debt becomes really expensive. And
Right.
so this is where you have a product or service that you can make that money back relatively quickly after advertising or conferences and conventions, then you have room for exponential growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's figuring out different ways to set up your business model so that you have that quicker return on investment. Do you need to sell the whole B2B service altogether for $450,000 in order to cover your $300,000 investment? Or can you break it up into some services that have much faster adoption so you get some cash flow back at least, right? And then some services that take longer to convert,
Mhm.
and then you just do them differently and just have to figure out the business model that works and just make sure it's profitable.
On your end, do you have because you know the in the chargeback always occur. So it's like, is your model reoccurring where they're paying like a subscription fee, or like tell me that like what that breakdown is
Sure.
in terms of the product.
It's pretty straightforward. Whenever there's a chargeback and whenever we catch it and send out an alert, we'll charge the merchant. And that results in a consumption model. Basically, as the merchant grows, they'll typically have more chargebacks. And because of this model, there's actually a lot of partnership between us and our merchants because as they grow, we grow.
Yeah.
And they depend on us and we depend on them.
Yeah.
So it's been a really interesting model. And not just like in terms of the recurring nature of it, but also the ability for that model to drive a relationship between us and our clients.
Interesting. Um, and the types of businesses, like in terms of size, are you taught like what is the like for you, what is the ideal or the most common customer in terms of like revenue size? Are these folks that are
Sure.
driving millions of dollars a month? Is it small businesses that are just small e-commerce businesses that are selling some sort of subscription model?
Right. In general, I would say our merchants do about $5 to $10 million a year.
Well,
However, something interesting is these are all very small teams. Maybe team of two, team of five, and most of them are self-funded.
wow.
Very few VC-funded companies. We do have a few, but most of them are self-funded. And most of them have figured out a way to gain leverage in their business to keep the team small,
That's awesome.
which is pretty cool to see. So it's kind of similar to us. And I think that's why we vibe pretty well with our clients because It's kind of like yourself in the mirror.
Yeah,
You kind of know what they care about because you know what you care about.
definitely. And I mean, they share the same issues that you had, with your previous
Yeah,
business with chargebacks. So you have this sort
yeah,
of unity with them. One thing, people that are start trying to scale their businesses, they talk about building an organic following. And one thing I'm not active as you on Twitter, but I've noticed you have grown immensely over the last few months on Twitter. And I'd love to hear about how your approach to personal branding, and providing value to people online. So, you develop a
right. So I think it really took off when I started just tweeting my sauna thoughts. So I hit the sauna almost every day. It's part of my routine. It's fantastic. For those who haven't tried it, definitely try it. But during the sauna time, it's an opportunity for me to not have any music, not have my phone, and just be in my thoughts. And those moments are so powerful because you have a lot of thoughts, whether it be business, personal, or just about life, that you would never have thought about unless you were in a state of mind that was just relaxed. And I started tweeting, kind of like, it's not philosophical, but things that I notice about the world are a really good way to explain something um, to a broader audience that maybe they wouldn't have thought about it that way. So breaking it down into something much simpler or using examples to help. And I really like that because, it's just kind of me. I always think about what's going on in life. I try and understand life. I try and understand ways to communicate that to people and to drive people to think about what's important to them rather than just take it day by day. So it's been really good. We've seen our growth. A lot of people engage with some of the tweets that we send out, and it's driven some business as well. So it's useful. I like it, and it's enjoyable. So
nice. What advice would you give to someone that's trying to grow their following online on social?
post a decent amount, maybe like at least once a day, maybe one to three tweets a day. When you have a tweet that goes viral, understand like what is the heart of that tweet. So the things that are working for me is one liners, 1 to 2 liners, right? Short and sweet, no pictures. Whenever I post something with a picture, or when I go and post something with more words, nothing. Yeah, it doesn't get picked up, not that many viewers, way lower. So over time, the algorithm in Twitter, it understands generally what works for you, and you should just double down on it. So don't when you find something that works, double down on it. It's the same thing as what we were talking about earlier with ad spend or finding a good business that's profitable. Just double down on what works, but you have to keep track in order to understand what works.
Mhm.
You can't just be trying things and you forget about what you did last week. You forget about what you did a month ago. You gotta need a good source of data to make that decision.
Do you think that though that level of organization skill set came from your background in finance, or where did that? Because that's a muscle that you have to work on. And some people are, they struggle with keep having that level of organization and diligence. So, like for you, how was that formed?
I would say probably through my jobs. So my jobs were not easy. They often led to like 12 to 16-hour days. And there's a lot of work to finish in those 12 to 16-hour days. And if you weren't organized, you'll forget something and slip up, and then you'll be chastised for it.
Yeah.
That is probably how I've gone about developing my organizational skills. But I also, this is going to be weird to hear me to say, but I love Excel. I don't know why. I love Excel. So I do a lot of stuff in Excel,
That's awesome.
right? A lot of organization I used to do in Excel. I can't really tell you why, but yeah.
That might be the part of it where you're wired a certain way.
Right, yeah. Something about squares.
In terms of like partners in the business, do you currently have are you solely operating this? Do you currently have any partners within it?
Yeah, I have two co-founders, and we've been together for over a year now. And so we have a CTO and then a chief revenue officer as well. And I play kind of in between the sales and operations space to make sure that everyone has everything they need in order to perform at a certain level. And it's having co-founders because building a business can be very lonely. Yeah, you know Carlos, but Carlos and I, we used to go in every weekend and work together on Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. And that's because I was just working alone, kind of in my apartment, and kind of sucks. So having co-founders, especially motivated ones, are great because you'll laugh and cry about the business, but at least you have someone else to do it with.
Yeah, definitely. How did you meet your co-founders? How did you get in touch with them, and what made you realize that they're a good match to scale up your business?
That's a great question. So I met Steven, our CTO, through my mutual friend, and they hosted like a Harvard Yale poker game during the Harvard Yale football game. So I was into poker way back then. I don't watch anymore, but met Steven there. And then we kept in touch because I stayed in Boston and we kind of had the same friend group. And then I saw him working with one of our mutual friends on their startup. I was like, oh, Steve seems pretty good. Like seems like he works really hard and he pushes out product pretty quick, and he also has a good business sense. So I've always kept that in mind. Like if there was a time that comes when Steven, is open to working together on a company, I should definitely talk to him. And that opportunity came, right after I turned like 28 or so, and we started chatting. It was actually another Harvard Yale game, but it was in Boston. And then we got lunch. We chatted and thought about some ideas that we could do to build a company together. And then, yeah, we did it. That's it. Take action. That's really important. We just took action. Yeah. And then Patrick is Steven's brother, so that one's pretty easy.
What's that dynamic like? Two brothers working together?
Pretty good. They're very, they have different like personalities, and I would say I probably have kind of a personality that sits between them, so it all kind of works out.
Cool, man. One thing we've spoken in private about is your use of overseas talent. So, being that I'm in the business of sourcing and deploying overseas talent from the Philippines to startups, property management companies, e-commerce companies, I'd love to hear about your experience in scaling a business using overseas talent.
So I would say we couldn't have done it without our overseas talent, without our overseas team. And I think the biggest misconception that people make is, oh, I'm going to outsource to the Philippines some really menial tasks that I don't want to do. Well, the thing is, there's a lot of folks there that are willing to work for American companies that are incredibly smart. We hire from like the top 3 schools at the Philippines, and I work with them to mentor them on how to think as well as how to lead. And before you know it, our client services org grew almost organically without my help, because the initial person that I worked with, Shane, she was great. and she took in everything I had to teach her and show her, and spoke to her about like how to manage someone. And she was 22, and Shane, because she was organized and took in everything that I said, she put together the knowledge base, the FAQ. And because we had that knowledge base, we were able to onboard additional people really quickly. Yeah. And before you know it, our team out in the Philippines is like double digits now. And I don't actually involved with any of the training. It's all done within the client's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. So providing opportunity to grow with outsourced talent is one thing that is completely overlooked, and I think people should give it a shot themselves.
I always said that there are folk overseas that they have worked at large American companies. They have went to the Yales and Harvards of their, and they get overlooked so much by startups and emerging companies that are able to pay a really great salary to them. We
Right.
just for our executive team that we're continuously building upon, we've been able to bring people in from companies that similar have been there and done that. I like to use that example where I say, like, I look at
Right.
a potential hire, and the first thing I look at is the role that you have. Have you been at a similar company, and what accomplishments have you made at that company that you can replicate at mine? And your ability to, like,
Right.
if you're able to identify those people, and you're able obviously to pay them a much better salary because the cost of living is a lot less overseas, you now have a power team that can just help you grow and get to the next level. We did that with HR because we had no one in our HR department. We did that with our finance department. And I really think, like, especially as we enter this shaky economy where companies will want to be a lot more conservative with their spending, they're going to look overseas to get more value.
What I think is what you just mentioned about hiring talent that have experience. I think it could be a double-edged sword, though, right? Because when you hire someone with experience, that someone probably thinks they know what to do. So what's funny is I actually focus on people without experience. So then I can kind of mold them into what I believe is a good person for that role. I'm not a big experience guy. I kind of like the banking consulting model where you hire from out of school, and then you provide them the skills necessary to succeed internally, and they're proud that they developed those skills, right? So it's a little bit different. I mean, I'm sure it's different use cases as well, but I think that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, experience component of it applies more so to, like, more executive positions. And like in our case, when we are hiring virtual assistants for other businesses, we prefer to have them start early. Like, I was talking to one of my
Right.
colleagues the other day, and she was saying, she's like, if you hire someone that has worked as a contractor for the last 6-7 years, and they've went from one company to another, the longevity of that tenure is probably not going to be that long if they've only lasted at a company for,
Right.
I don't know, like 2 years.
Right.
It's either you look for someone that's fresh, in your case, like fresh out of college, where they're moldable, or you look for someone that stayed at the same company for like 7 years, 8 years, because
Right.
that through the 7 or 8 years, they've seen their company go from zero to X amount, and they've been there the whole journey, and
Right.
now they're looking for a new opportunity.
Makes sense.
So, um,
Makes sense.
but from a developing a culture at your company, I think it's super important. Like, if you have someone that's young, ambitious, and smart, and as a leader, you're able to, you know, build out that company culture, expectations, accountability, then those people will
Right.
stay with you for years to come.
Yep. I agree. Absolutely.
Cool. Listen, what where can we find you online on Twitter if there are people that are interested in learning more about chargebacks and what they can do to decrease the number of chargebacks? We'd love to learn more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty active on like LinkedIn and obviously Twitter with the handle Qi, like cheetah, because I always have to explain how to pronounce my name. But if you really want to understand how to fix chargebacks for your business, I highly recommend just going to chargeblast.com, look into our blogs, and we give you a lot of introductory material that is digestible and actionable. So that's the best way to learn more about
Cool. And
chargebacks.
to everyone that's watching, if you are located in New York City, we host a monthly meetup, networking event. She is always there. I'm always there. We basically bring together entrepreneurs, people in the tech space, business owners, people that are trying to get into business together just to talk and shoot the shit, if you will. So definitely follow both of us for more information on that. We'd love to meet you. We'd love to network and talk more about these really important issues and the progress that we're making on a daily basis in our businesses. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Chi, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next
Thanks for
time
having me.
on the Sip and Scale podcast. Thank you.
Nice.